All right, what's going on? It's Bobby Skinner, Talking Giants, doing our draft month mock draft. I do 4 mock drafts a year. I do one in the midseason during the Giants bye week, one post-Senior Bowl pre-free agency, and then this one, draft month, and then our final ones that we do on the podcast on draft day. So this is the second closest to what I want. Still got about like 80 to 90 player evaluations done, more top-heavy, but feel good about going into the rest of this draft month about who the Giants are going to land. And this is an important draft. First one of the Joe Schoen era. Picks 5 and 7, which we'll obviously kick off with. Some disclaimers about how I do mock drafts. I use the Draft Network Simulator. I feel like they're the most consistent. There's no like crazy outlandish ones, so I don't want to hear this guy won't be there. You know what? There's a good chance that he may be there. Maybe he won't. I don't do mock draft trades. I would love for the Giants to trade back probably, maybe out of 7. But you know what? The trades they give you aren't going to be the trades in real life. So I don't do trades. And also, best player available is what I try to go by, but that's also a myth. It has to match need. Like the right tackle is a huge need. Now, do you reach on Charles Cross if Neal and Ekwonu are gone? No. But, best player available I do think is more of a myth, especially at the top of the draft. It's just about not reaching. Late rounds, I do really try to go best player available, though. Because you're probably not filling needs in those lanes rounds 4 to 7. You're truly just looking for good players out of that range because you're probably not going to get good players. So get the one that you're going to bet on the most to become a good player. And again, these mock drafts are what I would do, not predicting. So let's get into it. We got 9 picks, 2 first rounders, and we're kicking it off. Aiden Hutchinson went 1. Kyle Hamilton went 2. Evan Neal went 3, I think. And then the 4th pick, Kyle Hamilton and Evan Neal might have been switched. The 4th pick, which is a huge decider, Sauce Gardner went to the New York Jets. So I'm going to Ikem Ekwonu with our 5th overall pick, offensive tackle out of NC State, 6'4", 310 pounds. Right tackle is this Giants team's biggest need, and Ekwonu is the player I want. He's going to come in and fill it at right tackle. He was a 3-year starter at left tackle for NC State. This guy is extremely athletic, agile, and strong, and it shows up all over the field. In the run game, he moves extremely well, whether you're running wide zone, whether you're pulling him, whether he's getting second level to linebackers. I mean, he's just a mauler with a nasty first punch that's going to stun you, whether it's the run or the pass. Good balance, like he did rarely on the ground. I think he's actually got pretty good hand placement with his punch as well, too. And again, he's just a devastating athlete in the run game. Like, he bullies people. And his footwork needs a lot of work, whether it's run and pass. Like he can have false steps, and his footwork get really sloppy and crossover, and it just leads to unsustained blocks in the pass blocking. His feet click together, and it makes him vulnerable to inside counters. Now, that being said, he's got great ability to recover against those inside counters. Like, the athleticism shows off. There's times where he can punch too. I mean, he's got some of the issues that Andrew Thomas honestly had coming out of Georgia. He can punch too soon, leading to lead. Have his shoulders forward and pass pro. But again, he's got great mirror ability. He's never gonna suffer from the bull rush. Like, that strength shows up again in the pass. He's got things to work on. There's some sloppiness to his game, but I'd rather work with the traits that he has versus a guy like Charles Cross, who people think is a little more refined, but I still see real issues with his technique there. Just not as maybe not as some like glaring ones. But again, he's got that strength, athleticism, aggressive nature that you look for out of top 10 offensive tackles. And he's going to be playing right tackle, and I think that will hide some of the flaws in his game year one and allow him to develop without maybe being as criticized as Andrew Thomas was, to be frankly, where he was put out on an island at left tackle, and his flaws were there for everyone to see. You can hide them a little more at the right tackle spot. And again, he's going to be devastating in the run game. He's got some work to do, but I think he's going to work at that and do it. So I really like Ikem Ekwonu, offensive tackle out of NC State. So that's round 1, pick 5. All right, round 1, pick 7. The Jets made this decision easy for me. Obviously, I think we all see Aiden Hutchinson going in the top 4. Maybe Kyle Hamilton, even though I think he could slip out in reality. But, the mock had him going in the top 3 to the Texans. And then it's Evan Neal, Ikem Ekwonu. I think one of those will probably go in the top 4, even though it's not impossible. And then it's like, okay, who's going to be that 4th guy? And the Jets pick Rachaad White in this Draft Network mock draft simulator. So that makes this decision easy for me. Kayvon Thibodeaux, edge out of Oregon. And it would have been, if both those guys were there, it would have been a tough decision. But at the end of the day, I'm always picking Kayvon Thibodeaux over Sauce Gardner because of this Giants' need of a pass rusher, and it's so hard to find elite pass rushers outside of the top of the first round. Those are where the best pass rushers come from, and the Giants need that. Wink Martindale does prioritize secondary over pass rush, but guess what? Pass rush wins you playoff games. Sacks and drives, and the Giants don't have a drive ender on their team. So if you would have told me when we did the trade back with the Tony pick last year, you got an offensive tackle in Ekwonu, and then you get Kayvon Thibodeaux, that's a dream scenario, and I'm pumped about this. So Kayvon Thibodeaux, edge out of Oregon, will be the 7th pick, the second pick for the Giants. 6'4", 254 pounds. Great get off that's going to consistently open offensive tackles' hips, and that's the key to everything. He's the guy who can rush the pass rusher in multiple ways. He's not just a speed guy. He's not just a bull guy. He has good get off, so he can bend that corner. He can work outside in, even though it's more based in his strength. And he can get those are things he can improve on. He has the bull rush ability. If a guy's on his heels, to get pop those hands in the chest and bull rush him back to the quarterback. And those are the guys that are real deal pass rushers at the next level. And I think Kayvon Thibodeaux has all that ability, and I think he has more ability than Aiden Hutchinson, even though I think Aiden Hutchinson is going to be I think he is edge one, but like Kayvon Thibodeaux, every rep is going to test offensive tackles. In the run games, there's things he can get better at, but it's not because he doesn't have the traits. He just needs to have better eyes when he's on the play side. When he's the backside, he squeezes the gap well, and he delivers some pretty big hits. He's got a little bit of coverage experience, even though Wickham Arndale have him drop back 5 reps a game or something. But it won't be foreign to him. They did do that a little bit at Oregon, so I'm pumped about this pick. If you told me we could get the offensive tackle at 5 and Kayvon Thibodeaux at 7 before free agency, that looked unlikely. Now that free agency, some teams have locked up their offensive tackles. This is the dream scenario for the Giants. So I've got my pass rusher and Kayvon Thibodeaux out of Oregon at pick 7. All right, round 2, pick 36 for the Giants. I got my offensive tackle. I've got my edge. There still is a need for cornerback there, assuming James Bradbury's gone, and it really made me think about taking Roger McCreary out of Auburn. But those short arms do bother me. Look at the guys who have arms as short as him in their careers, and it doesn't really work out great, even though I do like Roger McCreary and considered him here. But to me, I'm taking best player available. I've got those 2 big needs taken care of with offensive tackle and edge, and I know there's other needs on this team, and this position may not be the biggest, but I think this guy is a top 15, worth a top 15 pick. There's a lot of guys in this wide receiver conversation that could be wide receiver 1, and I think this guy belongs to be there, and that's North Dakota State wide receiver Christian Watson, who's 6'4", 208 pounds. Ran a 4.3 640. And you think, oh, well, the 40 times don't mean anything. Sometimes guys are long striders. No, you watch him, and his speed is on another level. They gave him jet sweeps, and I know they're playing against bad competition, and that does make it harder to judge. It really does. But you watch him down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. He did really well. Again, he's a big wide receiver with that great speed, and he gets into it quickly. Like, he accelerates quickly. When you talk about Drake London, who's another big contested catch wide receiver, London doesn't have that top speed that scares me of making him a first-round pick, even though he probably will end up being that. But again, his 4.36 speed shows up, and he's going to be a constant deep threat. I think he's a great leaper. Like, he has a 38.5-inch vertical jump, but he does mistime it better. So there's times where he can be better, in those contested catch situations, even though he does contort his body well, and you can use him for back shoulders and stuff. But he does have some things needs to get better at, and he's just a smooth runner. Gets a lot of yak. Use on sweeps. Route running, he doesn't gear down much of the stem, but his breaks need to be quicker, and with less steps. They're very there's a lot of steps, and when he could just break those off quicker. But that's stuff he can get better at. He's big and physical, so if you jam at the line of scrimmage, there was his catch in the Senior Bowl. He basically jammed a cornerback to the ground and then was wide open. So obviously the size translates there. Even though there's sometimes he can stumble out of his releases, and his releases do need work, but you see the tools there to do that. He can box out players when he's running the shorter concepts, slants, curls, out routes. And he's a very willing blocker. People say he's a great teammate, which I feel like means something, especially at the wide receiver position. So I know this probably might not be the most popular pick in this mock draft, but I think when you can get this type of player who I think is in that wide receiver 1 conversation, possibly wide receiver 1 in the second round, I'm going Christian Watson, wide receiver out of North Dakota State. All right, round 3, pick 67. I love this pick. I thought about taking tight end Trey McBride, which I would have loved that pick as well, but at the end of the day, I went with a player who I graded much higher, and the position that Trey McBride plays. I think you can find talent there later. There's other guys that I like. Obviously not as much as Trey McBride. He is tight end 1 for me and a lot of people. But I get a guy who I think is a late first-round talent. I think one of the more underrated players in this draft. And that's Leo Chenal, linebacker out of Wisconsin. 6'3", 250 pounds. He had an awesome combine. 4.53 40, 40.5-inch vertical jump, which was top 5 in the entire combine. This past season for Wisconsin, he had 115 tackles in 11 games. So that's over 10 tackles per game, 8 sacks, 18.5 tackles for loss. And he would fit perfectly with what Wink Martindale wants to do. He's that prototypical linebacker who can do anything that's asked of him. He processes and diagnoses plays quickly, uses his instincts. Sometimes that will leave him out of place, but those are rare and far in between. But he does see things well. If he sees like a pulling player, and they're doing a designed cutback or misdirection play, he sniffs that stuff out pretty well. And again, there's times where he's out of place, but for the most part, he's doing his job, and those are things he's going to get better at. And his instincts are going to lead to huge tackles for a loss. You know what else is going to lead to tackles for a loss? These hands of Leo Chenal. He brings the pop. I mean, he really displaces offensive linemen in this draft. He gets up, he stacks on them, and he displaces them and is able to move on them. Look at it. Watch him versus Tyler Linderbaum. And I did a film breakdown of Leo Chenal on the Talking Football channel. Check it out. He won that battle versus Tyler Linderbaum. He got a sack in that game off of Tyler Linderbaum. He played really, really well in all areas of the game. So obviously in the run, he's gonna eat those tackles. He's gonna get those tackles for a loss. Wink can use him and line up in the A gap as a pass rusher and then a pass rusher from depth. He can do it all. People say he struggles in coverage, and again, I think if you look at any linebacker, they're not going to be the greatest. Who's a shutdown coverage linebacker? But watch him play. Watch him play in zone coverage. He can keep his eyes on the QB, but also get to his spot in the zone and diagnose route concepts. There was many a times where I see a QB going through his progression, and Leo Chenal shut it down. And that wasn't just on stick routes. That wasn't on, there was on some deep over routes, and he was shutting down that progression, and it led to sacks. Go watch the Wisconsin game. There's a deep over. He gets underneath it, covers it, and that's where the QB wanted to go. And he's like, can't go there. Pass rush gets there, strip sack, and there's a turnover. So it's does a strip sack go to that pass rusher? Yeah, but Leo Chenal's the one who made that. That was made by coverage, and you can argue that every sack is a coverage sack, except for rare ones. I think he's good in coverage. He can be better. He may not have his weakness is probably his agility. And again, he may not end up being here because there's going to be another team that loves him as much as I do. But I love Leo Chenal. I think he's a late first-round talent, and I'm getting him at the top of the 3rd round. So I'm very happy for that. I think he's an A- player, and he can do it all. He's a linebacker who can do it all, and he's got the size to match up and the strength to match up against NFL offensive linemen. So right now we got our offensive tackle, we got our pass rusher. We went a little luxury with Watson, and then we get a stacked linebacker next to Blake Martinez and Leo Chenal out of Wisconsin. All right, round 3, pick 81. This pick is from the Miami Dolphins and the Azeez Ojulari trade down last draft. I love this guy. I've just found out about him recently. Watched him at the Senior Bowl, but he was working at center. Dylan Parham, interior offensive line out of Memphis, 6'3", 311 pounds. Had a decent combine, nothing special, but he played tight end and linebacker in high school and then became a 4-year starter at Memphis, 2 seasons at left guard, then right tackle, and then right guard this past year, and then worked at center at the Senior Bowl. So some people project him as a center. I think he can play guard just fine, but if you want, he's got position flexibility. I actually don't think he'd be the worst matchup at tackle if you need to plug him in for a game in the NFL. He dominated Myjai Sanders out of Cincinnati. But nonetheless, he's an interior guy. I love this guy a lot. He's a good athlete, and it shows up in the pass and run. He doesn't have the greatest strength moving guys off the line, scrimmage pop. I think some of that he can grow into that, but he's just a really good athlete with good posture, good balance. He's very patient in the pass sets. You watch him work to the second level, and it's better than a lot of NFL guys. So in the pass pro, again, he doesn't shoot his hands, but he places them. But when he's got his hands right, his feet mirror really well. This is, I think, to get in the round 3, Dylan Parham. I learned about this guy late, but I really, really like him. And the Giants need help, and you don't have to throw him into a starter role right away, because you got other guys there. But let him work into that. So I really like Dylan Parham out of Memphis with round 3, pick 81. All right, round 4, pick 112. This is from the Chicago Bears in the draft day trade from 11 to 20 last season. They don't have their own 4th-round pick that was traded away in the Ben Bredeson pick, even though we get another pick back through the Ravens, but from the Chiefs in the 5th round. But I'm going DeAngelo Malone, edge out of Western Kentucky. 6'3", 243 pounds, 33 1/8 inch arms. He was a super senior at Western Kentucky, and he is coming from a small school, and he has some slighter frame, but I really like this guy. I mean, look at his tackles for a loss numbers the last 4 years. 17.5, 10.5, 20.5, 9. Sacks, 8, 6, 11, 6. Just a real producer. Really caught our eye at the Senior Bowl and then went and watched his film, watched him play against bigger schools. And he just balled. And he got a lot of attention at chip blockers. He just plays like a man who's just insane. His speed is unreal. Fast, fast, fast. And he accelerates off the line of scrimmage. He slips blocks well. He uses his hands well. And he closes in on a hurry. You don't find this speed late. And him being a super senior and playing at a small school will knock him. And again, he is a slight of frame. He's not going to be the best edge setter, but he's not bad versus the run. There's guys who like Nick Bonito out of Oklahoma. I think he's bad versus the run. DeAngelo Malone isn't bad versus the run. He's just not your typical set the edge, bring the power type guy. But he disengages blocks really well while not giving up much to ground. So from the backside, he squeezes it like crazy and makes these insane pursuit plays. But he's a guy who's got loose hips, and just Wink Martindale, let him go out there and rush the passer and work him on certain rundowns. This speed can't be taught. And I mean, it's just unreal speed for a guy that's projected, in the 4th, 5th round, maybe late 3rd round range. And I'd be, if they took him in the 3rd round, I'd be happy with it. To get him in the 4th round, I'm pretty thrilled to start off day 3 of this draft with DeAngelo Malone, edge out of Western Kentucky. All right, round 5, pick 147. I'm going to the running back with a guy I really like, Rachaad White, running back out of Arizona State, 6 foot, 214 pounds. Was really only a 1-year starter at Arizona State, but he averaged 5.5 yards per pop. A real threat of the receiver. I mean, in 11 games, he had 43 catches, averaging 10 yards per catch. And then the year before that, he averaged 10 yards per carry, 18.9 yards per catch. He's a real threat as a receiver. As far as him as a player, speed is good, not great, and it's more of build-up speed. So I think he really works well in a wide zone, outside zone scheme, which it seems like the Giants are trying to incorporate a little bit, because he's got really good vision. His vision in the run game is his best friend. He's got vision paired with patience, so he sees cutbacks, he lets blocks develop on the front side, and then when you're in the wide zone, it's very hard to kind of figure out, all right, I'm cutting this up, or, hey, I'm putting this out on the perimeter. And I think he's got the speed and the vision and patience for that. Doesn't bring much as a tackle breaker. If a play's broken and he's got tacklers in front of him, he's going to fall forward. He's a big, pretty strong guy who's going to fall forward and get those extra 2 yards, but he's not going to break tackles besides the one cut, jump cut type thing. And again, you can line up outside. You're a real threat as a receiver out of the backfield. Watch him versus USC from 2020. Had a really nice 70-yard touchdown versus them, which was really cool. As a blocker, usually I kind of just watch, how does he bring a pop? Yes, he does, but he has great vision for scanning blockers when teams are running stunts or linebackers are on delayed blitzes. I was surprised to see his vision scanning for a guy who's had not as much playing time, not as much tread on his tires. So I really like Rachaad White, running back at Arizona State. I identified him pretty early in the process, and good enough athlete for that wide zone scheme, which the Giants are seeming to do. So, the Giants obviously have Saquon Breida, and then you bring in Rachaad White to, battle for that RB3, RB2 spot. All right, round 5, pick 173. This pick is from the Chiefs through the Ravens in the Ben Bredeson pick swap, where the Giants gave up their 4th round pick. And I'm going LSU defensive tackle, nose tackle particularly, Farrell Jr. I fell in love with this guy down in Mobile, Alabama, watched his film, and the film matches up. I don't know why he's rated this low consistently throughout the board by people. I think it's just because he doesn't have the athletic ability to really play anything other than nose tackle. But he's going to come in and do his job well. At 6'4", 330 pounds. He did have a horrible combine, like a 5'4", 140, a 21.5-inch vertical jump. But, I mean, you look at the numbers in his film, this past season for LSU, he had 2 sacks, 9.5 tackles for a loss in 12 games, 45 tackles as a nose tackle. And again, he is a true nose tackle, and he holds up, but he holds up well athletically for that nose tackle, that inside the guard and center technique, that one technique. He's great at the snap with his pad level, get off and hands. He never gives up ground. And versus double teams, he's stalemating. Versus single teams, he's getting penetration or he's shedding those players. And again, like his plan changes, whether it's that punch, swipe, shooting the gap when the center's trying to come over and pass protection, swimming. There's even times where, hey, if that player's like playing head heavy, he'll swim off of you and then be free in the gap. Fires off low with consistently good hand strength. And he's got the strength to be a read and react player where he fires off, gets his hands in your chest, and then bam, dump you, and then he's there in the gap for a run stop or a tackles for a loss. So now he's not going to get sacks in the NFL. He'll get one or two every year type player. If he's playing consistently and starting, he'll get one or two every year. But he does have good pass rush ability. He just doesn't have the athletic ability to finish the deal. With, again, if you're playing him at nose tackle, that's kind of what you're asking for. You're not going to find many nose tackles who are just chasing down quarterbacks. Like he's a bad athlete when he's in open space. But as far as running him at nose tackle, like the Giants have Justin Ellis there. Still somewhat of a hole, and Justin Ellis is getting older. I think Farrell Jr. would come in. He's got that nice ability to fire off and hand strike. So with our 2nd, 5th round pick, I'm going LSU defensive tackle Farrell Jr. All right, let's finish off this draft with round 6, pick 182. No 7th round picks for the Giants at the moment of this recording. Round 6, pick 182. And I'm going Nebraska tight end Austin Allen. Now, I expected to go tight end a little earlier in this draft, but it just kind of kept on being like, he's not the best player available, and I kind of kept on putting it off. And that kind of is what sucks about the Giants having so many needs going into the draft. But you know what? I'm not going to not take a player I think is better because there's a need at tight end. Because there's a need on a lot of spots on this team, and this team needs to be built up, and it's not going to be fixed this year. But with round 6, I get Austin Allen, tight end out of Nebraska. Huge guy, 6'8", 253 pounds. Did pretty decent at the combine. Ran for his size, ran a 4.8, 340, 34-inch vertical jump. This past year for Nebraska, he had over 600 yards on 38 catches. A couple touchdowns. He's got a huge frame and he knows how to use it. He's not a good athlete, but he's a good enough athlete with his size. And as a blocker, he blocks really well in space, whether this is a wham blocker, lead blocker, you put him out on the perimeter. He knows how to use angles. He brings his hand, feet, and hips into every single block. So he's a good functional blocker. Now, I think he needs more strength to really take the next step to be an inline blocker and to get starting reps in the NFL. He's going to need to add strength. But again, we're talking about a 6th round pick right here. In the receiving game, most of his big plays came in those block and release type of plays where it's kind of trekking the defense. But he has a slow release, but he's got decent build up speed. But the release is slow and the route running isn't crisp or quick. You kind of want either crisp, but slow, or quick, but not crisp with these late round guys. It's kind of neither. But he does catch everything he's thrown his way. He's not a great leaper, but he does high point the ball really well. If the ball's thrown low, he's going to get it. If it's thrown outside, he adjusts really well to those throws. So in round 6, I think you get a guy that you can use. The Giants want to use that, quote unquote H-back. And I think Austin Allen can do that while adding you some more inline size and being a red zone threat. So Austin Allen, tight end out of Nebraska, finishes off this draft. So that's 9 picks for the New York Giants. We got our premier offensive tackle and edge in the 1st round. In the 2nd round, we got a guy that I thought was best player available in Christian Watson, wide receiver out of Nebraska. Round 3, we got Leo Chenal, who I thought was a 1st round player. Dylan Parham, get DeAngelo Malone, Rachaad White. Two guys I like in the later rounds. Farrell Jr., and then we finish off the Austin now. So again, subscribe. We're going to have some more draft breakdowns on this channel, talking football, and all the draft preview pods. It's draft month, baby. Appreciate you guys. See you on the next one. Until then, let's go Big Blue.